Hello, welcome to Foreign Policy Focus, episode 24. As always, I'm the show's host, Kyle, and I think this is going to be a very important podcast to share. So if you are liking this show, subscribe on iTunes, leave a rating and review, and then go on your social media and share the show with your friends, family, whoever you can. Not only would that help the show to grow, but I think I'm going to relay some important information today, especially with the events unfolding last night having to do with Syria. So, like I said, I think this is a really important show. Please share it, and I'll try to get right to the content. So, last night, I guess it would have been April 6th, Washington, D.C. time, or April 7th in Syria. The White House, I believe the White House ordered, I would imagine the White House would have had to order, it would have been a story by now. And with how important this event was, I'm assuming that Donald Trump gave the order himself to carry out 59 Tomahawk missile strikes against, I believe, one Syrian air base. The base was controlled by Assad, so this was America's first direct attack against the Syrian government headed by Assad. In the past, we have supported rebels who fought Assad. We have given rebels additional weapons or money around the time that Syria was fighting a big battle with maybe ISIS, causing them to have to fight on a second front and possibly losing battles with ISIS because of the U.S. intervention. The U.S. has not made it easy for the Syrian government to defeat ISIS. However, we have never directly impeded Assad from fighting ISIS or al-Qaeda in Syria. However, we've made life more difficult for him, and we have sanctions against him. But last night, Trump, in unprecedented escalation in Syria, he went ahead and carried out 59 strikes against the Assad government. This doesn't seem to be necessarily shocking all in Iraq, which would be, hundreds and hundreds of bombs followed by an invasion. We do already have estimates of 2,000 troops in Syria. However, I mean, that number could be 1,000, it could be 2,000. It's definitely 1,000 though. And it appears that we are going to enter a different stage in the war in Syria, and that stage is going to involve the U.S. fighting against Assad. There's some speculation that this is just a one-off attack, and it was only to pay Assad back for the chemical weapons attack, which he may not have carried out himself anyways. And it isn't a permanent occupation, a shock and all type event, that this is just a one-off event, and so long as Assad doesn't use chemical weapons again, then the U.S. isn't going to bomb Assad anymore. The most perplexing piece to this is that Trump ran on a campaign of, well, we're gonna blow the hell out of ISIS, but why are we fighting Assad? Assad's fighting ISIS too. And I don't know, I guess he kind of had an American first foreign policy, although, I mean, he was better than somebody who wanted to invade and overthrow dictators like a Hillary Clinton. And then, a couple months into being president of the United States, Trump no longer supports what he said during his campaign and did the exact opposite what he said he would do. And he attacked a leader of a foreign Middle Eastern country. And so, boy, I mean, sad day, first of all. It really, I was shocked. Honestly, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about the situation maybe minutes before this happened. And he was saying that he was concerned about Syria, and I was saying, well, if you look at the chessboard, the U.S. has no good moves in Syria, and so Trump isn't going to continue to risk American lives in a situation where the U.S. can't win. But I suppose I underestimated the stupidity of Donald Trump, and he went ahead with this strike against Assad, and apparently, rather than what it seemed like the path that the road was leading down seemed to be that Trump was going to use the Kurds to remove ISIS from Syria and then give at least some of that territory back to the Syrian government, especially the city of Raqqa. And this would have ended the Syrian civil war, at least for the most part. There probably still would have been some terrorists running around north and south of Damascus and the Idlib province, and then down near the border between Jordan and Syria, or Israel and Syria. But for the most part, the Syrian civil war would have been over, and maybe the Kurds end up with an independent state. Maybe they end up with a feudal state within Syria, but they pretty much have their own whatever they want to have it, and Assad can't do anything militarily to them. I don't think Assad would have just the military capabilities to fight the Kurds, especially with everything the U.S. is giving them. I guess, if all actors are logical, which, it seems like Assad's best move would be, at the very least, to just not pick a fight with the Kurds after the U.S. Leaves, because picking a fight with the Kurds would just create an additional enemy for Assad in a country that's been under civil war since going on 7 years now. Hell, people just want to stop fighting. I think Assad probably wouldn't mind feeling secure on the throne for some time. At least, like I said, a rational person would. However, it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. It looks like Trump is going after the throne in Damascus, and either he is too foolish, or has bad advisors, or is maybe a Satanist who wants to see people die. Trump doesn't realize that eventually al-Nusra or al-Qaeda or ISIS will end up taking over Syria, and at the very best they could hope for a Muslim Brotherhood type government compared to Assad, who certainly, maybe was no great guy or ally, certainly allowed, Christians and Muslims of different faiths to worship in Syria, and certainly just had a fairly loose society. He was a brutal dictator. I certainly wouldn't have written any bad news stories about Assad as a journalist in Syria. I don't think that the people really have freedoms to pick their leaders or anything like that. Syria was no paradise. However, having the right to worship whatever religion you want is a luxury in some parts of the world, and Assad assured that the people of Syria would have that luxury, and I don't think that a Muslim Brotherhood type or al-Qaeda or ISIS style group would do that. And so I think, those are kind of like the bare bone calculations in Syria, is that you're either going to get Assad or somebody who either is or nears Sunni extreme Islam. And having that government would be a disaster, and it's confusing to me if Trump doesn't realize this or if Trump doesn't care. I don't know which would be worse. I think it's hilarious that actually either yesterday or the day before, Hillary Clinton was giving a talk, and the subject of Syria came up and what she would do because Assad carried out a chemical weapons attack. Of course, Hillary Clinton doesn't say, well, I will wait for evidence saying that Assad carried out the chemical weapon attack or not. But Hillary Clinton opens her big fat war-loving mouth and says, I would bomb Assad's airfields. And what do you know? The next day, Donald Trump apparently takes the advice of Hillary Clinton and decides to blow up Assad's airfields. Now, maybe Trump didn't actually take Hillary's advice. He probably didn't know she said. But still, she suggests it and then it happens. It should be a red flag for Donald Trump. It should be a red flag for Donald Trump supporters, and I think it is. Whenever Trump and Hillary are agreeing that they should bomb Assad, this is why we didn't vote for Hillary. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but this is why people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. It's because that woman loves war, and she loves blowing up other countries because she thinks she can make them better and doesn't realize she can't. And when Donald Trump's following that same path, this is only going to lead to a situation of catastrophe. Overall picture here, U.S. is $20 trillion in debt, right? So at this point, starting another aggressive war probably isn't a good thing. Syria has already been bombed to pieces, and another U.S. air war to try to dislodge Assad from all the cities that he took from ISIS is only going to reduce them even more to rubble. And does the U.S. really want to have another Iraq on its hands? Do we really want to go into a country and make matters worse and then take responsibility for it? Even if everything goes well and Russia and the U.S. don't end up in a war over Syria and the U.S. just removes Assad from the throne in Syria and puts a puppet dictator in his place, let's just say Donald Trump's wildest dream come true, how much money is the U.S. going to be on the hook for? How much is it going to cost us? Right, because what we're going to have to do then is we're going to have to buy Syria enough of a military so that they could fight off all the people who are really upset about the U.S. killing off Assad and putting in a puppet dictator. They're going to have to spend an awful lot of money to make the just local populations compliant by giving them buildings and bridges and waterways and building them all new cities essentially, because these are cities that were bombed by Assad and are now bombed by the U.S. Yeah. So how the hell are we gonna afford it? Just, I mean, look at it on paper. And if you look at what the U.S. is gonna make itself responsible for by picking this fight in Syria, can the U.S. handle that responsibility? And the answer is absolutely no. Now, I really want to highlight, because this is, the decision Trump, it looks like he's making now. Maybe he never bombs Syria again, and this is all just speculation on my part. But if he does continue with an aggressive war against Assad, the outcome will be ISIS, al-Qaeda, or a Muslim Brotherhood style group taking the throne in Syria. Syria is a Sunni majority state. The only fighting groups in Syria with any military power other than the outside powers like the U.S., Russia. Assad, of course, has a pretty strong military, but if you're looking at groups like the Kurds, al-Nusra, ISIS, the Free Syrian Army rebels, it appears that the strongest is the al-Qaeda rebels, or the ISIS rebels would have a little bit more struggles, I think, getting they're pretty pushed pretty far out east. So with Damascus being west, I think they would have a lot harder time getting to Damascus. But I think the most likely group to be able to have the military might to overthrow Assad would be al-Nusra. And if the U.S. is able to weaken Assad to the point that a group on the ground can overthrow him, then it's going to be al-Nusra. I guess the other option would be is that the U.S. could invade Syria with, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of troops, and I guess have U.S. and Russian troops fighting each other in Syria. I mean, this whole thing is insane. Every possibility has such an insane outcome at this point that I'm really there. I mean, there's one good scenario here in that maybe Trump worked out a deal with Putin where he was going to carry out this attack ahead of time in order to, I guess, quell the left on their Trump loves Putin nonsense. And the U.S. is going to stop bombing Assad after this, and it was just a one-off event. I mean, maybe something like that could happen. I don't know. I highly doubt that if Trump did carry out this airstrike in an attempt to, pay Assad back one for using chemical weapons, which Assad didn't use chemical weapons, at least that's not proven, then it's only escalation from here, because now every time there's a chemical weapons attack, Trump will have to respond with more airstrikes against Assad. And look, if the rebels know that a chemical weapons attack will cause Trump to bomb Assad, I think they'll just do it over and over again, knowing that even if the U.S. doesn't believe all of them, they'll believe some of them, and sometimes Assad being bombed is good for them. And remember, these aren't moderate rebels. This is going to be al-Nusra, al-Qaeda in Syria. And I think this is kind of the path that we're on. This is the direction that we're following. And it's only bad from here. Some other important pieces to this story, one that I don't think is getting mainstream media attention, and that is Philip Giraldi went on Scott Horton's show and said that he has sources within the U.S. intelligence agent, I don't know if it's the CIA or a different U.S. intelligence agency, and the intelligence members know that the Russian story is correct. The Russian story of the Syrian chemical weapons attack is that Assad did carry out an airstrike against the Syrian rebels, and it hit a weapons depot, and that weapons depot must have contained chemical weapons because Assad just used a regular bomb. To me, this seemed like the most likely thing that happened. It did seem to me that with all the reports coming out, and even I think Doctors Without Borders said earlier on that a chemical weapons attack occurred, I didn't think that this was a made-up story that the rebels just, shot a bunch of people in the head and they said, oh my god, 72 people died of chemical weapons attack. I was skeptical that it would be the Syrian rebels carrying out another false flag, just because at this point, I mean, what little goodwill they have left with the United States is the only thing really keeping them alive in Syria. And if the United States were to catch them gassing their own people again, I think that the pressure to pull all support away from those rebels will be pretty high. So I didn't like that scenario either. However, it is pretty disturbing that the Syrian rebels apparently do have chemical weapon stashes around. And so it seems likely that Assad was trying to blow up some probably al-Qaeda tow missiles, and of course they probably got the tow missiles from the U.S., and in doing so they hit a chemical weapons lab and caused this mess to occur. It's a shame that such a seemingly random event in the history of the world, that a bomb happened to hit something, another weapon, and set off that weapon, and that's what's going to be possibly causing a conflict between the world's two nuclear superpowers, US and Russia. Seems absurdly ridiculous and absolutely insane that we live in a world where some idiots like Trump, Putin, and Assad could get billions and billions of people killed with no actual authority, just with the, authority that, people give them. But, I mean, they're not gods or anything. They're just regular people. If nobody listened to them, then who the hell are they from anybody else? Yeah, I mean, this is the world we live in. And, oh boy. Another angle to finish up with the Philip Giraldi story, so these U.S. intelligence agents know that the evidence points to Assad not carrying out a Syrian chemical weapons attack in Syria, and that basically means that Trump bombed Assad on fake information. And I guess some of them are thinking about coming forward and leaking the information if the Trump administration does not come out and admit that this was carried out on bad information. Hopefully this happens. I mean, this is one of the other few ways that something good comes out of this. Man, it would completely discredit Trump and be hilarious. This would be great if a bunch of U.S. Intelligence officials come out and tell the Trump administration, F you, buddy, we are going to tell the American people the truth, and that is that you lied. You bombed Syria for absolutely no reason. We have the evidence that says that Syria didn't pull off that chemical weapons attack, and you knew it, and you just try to lie America into another war. I guess as much as I would love for that to happen, I would feel really bad for the guys that leaked that information, because, man, under a Trump administration, you'd be in jail for a long time. So that's an important story, and something, man, that'd be a wish come true, is if that would get leaked, and then maybe we could just cut off this war that way. I also think that for the anti-war movement, I mean, this is a time, if there's leads that could come out, if there's anything that could happen, I mean, we need to be throwing Hail Marys at this point, trying to keep the U.S. from creating another Iraq, and it just looks so likely to happen at this point. One good thing is I think some Trump supporters are seeing through this nonsense that Trump's been pushing, and hopefully these people and their American first attitudes, especially the former libertarians, that may pull them back into libertarian set of mind, realizing that Trump was a false prophet for them. They fell for another politician's lies and schemes, just like dumb Barack Obama voters did back in 2008, thinking that this man was actually different. Hopefully they wake up. Hopefully, unlike some of the Obama supporters who just buried their hand in the sand and said, "Oh, there's no major wars going on," the Trump people will have to face reality that Trump isn't the person that he promised to be. There were said Syrian soldiers killed in that attack. I had heard reports that Russians did occupy that area and have some troops at that airbase before, and Trump, so it does seem to be that Trump did warn that this was going to happen. I guess the good news coming from this is that rather than like Assad just attacking the U.S. and trying to stop this, he let it happen. So I guess maybe Putin does see that there is some allowable loss that the U.S. could inflict on Assad, so we could bomb them a little bit, and Putin's not going to do anything about it. I'm guessing he's not happy about the Russia has released statements condemning the U.S. and saying the attack was based on nonsense. But it hasn't been as extreme as it could be. I hope so. As I record this podcast, a U.S. jet could be shooting down a Russian jet or some other nonsense in Syria. So who knows what's going on at this second. With one of the more interesting tweets I saw about the story was Gareth Porter saying this is like the fastest pivot in U.S. history on foreign policy. And I have to agree with him. I mean, it was earlier in the week. I think it was Foreign Policy Focus 21 where I was telling my audience that, hey, it looks like the Trump administration is accepting facts that Assad's going to be staying in as the commander-in-chief in Syria, and there's nothing we can really do about it, and we're okay with that. But now they've started to carry out attacks against Assad, so that's obviously no longer the case. I mean, they are doing something about him being the ruler of Syria now. All right, I want to talk about this story from one more angle, then I'll wrap up. And that is Congress and war powers. Now, it seems to me that attacking the power, the government of a country, the legitimate government of the country. I mean, Assad does rule Syria, and there hasn't been an election voting for anybody else. How that person can be bombed by the United States without any authorization, use of military force, or declaration of war seems to be well outside of presidential war powers and the ability to attack countries. The only congressman I've seen, I'm sure there's more, I'm sure Thomas Massey has come out too, but I know Rand Paul said that Trump is going to need a declaration from Congress to carry out this attack. Most congressmen have applauded this move. I'm sure it's pretty popular on the right and left. Hillary Clinton likes it, John McCain likes it, Lindsey Graham likes it, Paul Ryan likes it. And this is the time to call our senators and say, hey, you guys need to have a vote on this, because at least if you're going to carry out this war, I'm going to make sure next time we have you on record voting for it. That way we vote your ass out of office. So pay attention to what your congressmen are saying. Demand that they take a vote on trying to overthrow Assad in Syria. And if that's something that our country will vote to go to war for, at least Congress has to vote on it. That way we can vote those guys out of office. All right, today I'm going to wrap up the show there. If you like the show, give me a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and subscribe to the show from there. That way you never miss a show. Like the Facebook page, Kyle's Files, and join the Facebook group Foreign Policy Focus. My website is kylesfilesblog.com. And follow me on Twitter at KYAAALE. Oh, and for those of you who are still listening, I have a pretty exciting announcement. We had our 1,000th download this week. So, moving up. Hey, you're liking and sharing the show. You're making a big difference. You're helping it grow. So keep it up, everyone. Thanks. I'll see you on Monday.